It has been a wild mix of tweets from Donald Trump recently. He has been focusing on policy going forward, as he did in this case, and on the election going back here. How counter is what he's saying in that tweet, a tweet that's a bit contradictory in nature there, as I read it, to what President Obama has been pursuing here in terms of nuclear weapons and the nuclear stockpile?
Yeah, wow. David, as you know, President Obama has taken great lengths through this nuclear security summit structure to try to rein in and kind of bring to heel any kind of a nuclear arms race. And President Obama also doesn't usually communicate his policy thoughts by Twitter. So on two fronts, this is really different. But I want to read you something that Vladimir Putin said earlier today. There's a lot we have to do to strengthen the nuclear triad of forces, he said at a meeting in Moscow. So this raises some interesting questions on two fronts. Number one, what is Donald Trump actually proposing in terms of expanding U.S. Nuclear weapons capacity? And number two, is this in fact sort of a strategic messaging to Russia? How does that mesh with what up until now has been his much more open approach toward Vladimir Putin?
Margaret, you cover the White House, you cover the Obama White House. The president right now is in Hawaii. He's not in Washington, D.C. But I wonder what people in his administration are doing at this point while all of this happens. I think of this, President-elect making statements about nuclear policy. I think of last week with the disappearance, temporary disappearance of this unmanned underwater vehicle, Donald Trump weighing in on that as well. And the White House throughout it all has been rather quiet.
That's right. The National Security Council, as always, is continuing to operate even if the president is on vacation with his family, and the president continues to get briefings. So whether they get a heads up from the president-elect or whether they find out on Twitter, like the rest of the United States, this is something that the White House is monitoring very closely. But President Obama seems determined not to get engaged in a tit-for-tat with a man who's not actually president yet. His eye and his administration's eye has been on in these international issues, having conversations with their counterparts in those other countries, because he's still the president and that is the channel of communications. It's something they're monitoring, though, and that they are concerned about.
Margaret, let me ask you about some appointments announced through more formal channels via email from the transition team. Three big appointments here. Kellyanne Conway going to be a counselor to the president. Carl Icahn being appointed here to oversee regulatory reform within the White House. And Peter Navarro, who's going to head up trade policy for the new administration. Let me turn to Carl Icahn. He was on Bloomberg TV just a few weeks ago talking about regulation. Let's hear what he had to say.
I'm a very microcosm of this. I own 10, 15 businesses or control a few more than that. And I would tell you that we would invest in many of these businesses if we didn't have these insane regulations all over you.
The transition team noting that Carl Icahn will not have to be appointed. He'll be not a special government employee or a federal employee here. What sense do we have of his role? Is it like the role that Cass Sunstein, the Bloomberg View columnist, had in the Obama administration, or is it something different?
Right. So, and it's not just that he owns 10 or 15 businesses, of course, right? He's the 20th richest man in America. He has a tremendous amount of influence and also investment personally in everything from biotech to energy to telecom. So a stake in many of these issues where regulation is front and center. The truth is, whether it is a paid position or in this case an outside advisory position, what that person's role is really has everything to do with what the incoming president and his aides want that role to be. Is this a role that's going to compete, with the NEC or the Treasury Secretary or be complementary to them? The concern from those who have raised criticism, both Democrats and kind of environmental activists and such, has been that precisely because he would not even be in an official, sort of paid staff role, he can exert his influence on industry, without that scrutiny.